Joining me now is Democratic Congresswoman from Texas, who is also a vice-ranking member of the House Homeland Security and House Foreign Affairs Committee, Julie Johnson. Welcome back to the program. Thank you so much for being here.
Great to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you. Okay, a lot to get to here as we dive into this looming government shutdown. We want to take a listen to House Appropriations Committee Chairman Tom Cole on the Hill Sunday. Let's listen.
Almost every Republican in both chambers has voted to keep the government open. Frankly, almost every Democrat in both chambers has voted to close it down. So I think it's pretty simple to see Democrats are trying to blackmail the administration and Republicans in Congress to achieve an unrelated objective. I don't think it's going to work.
Okay, so we've got a big week on tap. Are you satisfied with how your party is collaborating with Republicans to get this budget package passed? How are you feeling on this Sunday?
Well, you know, it doesn't look like we're at a lot of impasse right now. So far, you know, they've refused to meet. I thought it was ridiculous that Speaker Johnson canceled our legislative days, Monday and Tuesday, given the importance of where we are in the calendar and with the government funding. The fact that he just told everybody not to come back, we're not going to deal with it. It's the Senate's problem, is a lack of leadership and is a real problem. But I guess now he's back. Now he's ready to meet. The Democrats have tried to meet with President Trump. He declined. But I guess now he's finally capitulating and is going to actually have a sit-down meeting. But you know, where we are, I disagree with Tom Cole in the previous clip you just played. You know, what Democrats are doing, we're not willing to vote for something that's going to strip millions and millions of people from their health care. They're eliminating tax cuts for people in the health care space, and we're just not here for it. You know, we're going to really stand up. People rely heavily on their health care benefits, and we're committed to make sure that they still continue to see them.
Yeah, and aside from health care, what are some things in the bill that will affect your constituents the most? What is of the most concern to you?
Well, I think right now, obviously, it's the healthcare piece. Mm-hmm. It's the elimination of the ACA tax credits. And, you know, what these Republicans are doing is they gave tax breaks to the wealthiest top people, and they are screwing over middle-class folks who are just working hard. For example, if you're a retired couple and you're living on $85,000 a year, you can benefit currently under the ACA tax credits to make your health insurance around $7,000. If this bill goes through, that same couple's insurance is going to go up to over $20,000. And who can afford that on $85,000 a year? I mean, this is a real impact for people, for working class folks across this country, and Democrats are standing up.
Yeah, and forget retirement for those folks with those numbers you just mentioned. I mean, we're talking about a post-retirement job or two to make ends meet. I also want to get your take on Portland while I have you, because Trump, as you may have heard, directed the deployment of National Guard troops to assist ICE facilities. We've had a lot of problems. You represent parts of Dallas, which is still reeling from the fatal shooting at an ICE facility, you know, that killed a migrant detainee and injured two others. So as we sit here today on Sunday, looking ahead to the week, do you think that the military should be helping out in these cases? Is that what is needed?
No, absolutely not. You know, there's absolutely no evidence to suggest that Portland law enforcement cannot regulate the situation. The reality of it is, we have the right to protest in this country. It's part of the First Amendment. And the reality, people do not appreciate and they do not like the way that ICE is handling the enforcement mechanisms of their cause. You know, they're brutally assaulting people. They're masked men running up on people, scaring them, really kind of terrorizing people, and people are protesting that. And the reality of it is Donald Trump does not like it when people stand up at him and say, no, we don't like what you're doing. And rather than taming down the policies, taming down and keeping ICE to do law enforcement in an appropriate way, they're going to try to militarize our National Guard and use them against American citizens, which is unprecedented, and it's not the intention of the National Guard. And they're not trained in military, in policekeeping. That is not what their role is. Mm-hmm. And the governor of Oregon and the mayor of Portland have all said repeatedly, our law enforcement, our state troopers of Oregon are perfectly capable of handling the situation, and there's no evidence that there's not.
And we have heard that feedback, but is there anybody that has said, look, it's nice to have them there, though, with what we're seeing on the streets? I mean, things are getting pretty, challenging in some cities that we have seen so far. Is there any part of anybody that you've talked to that says maybe just for a little bit, just to calm things down?
Well, what does the presence mean exactly? They're the military of the United States government. Their job is to fight wars. Their job is to engage in battle an armed conflict with our enemies abroad, not citizens at home. Police are uniquely trained to deal with civil disruption and protests in our country within the bounds of appropriate law enforcement, not the National Guard. And so, we have police. I don't support violence and under any circumstance. I don't think protesters should be violent. I condemn strongly any physical shooting attacks or anything like that across anyone. But at the end of the day, we have structures in place and we have law enforcement that are trained to do different things. Our National Guard is not trained for policing.
Got it. All right. Well, also, we were just getting this into our newsroom. The DHS has arrested now 11 so-called violent rioters outside of the ICE detention facility in Chicago. And they reportedly took 2 guns from protesters and are launching an investigation into this. So what do you make of that development? Things, I don't know if you saw our coverage last night, but we had Mills Hayes out there and, she had to wear riot gear and a mask and everything. So things are getting dicey in many places.
I'm sure that that's the case, and we condemn that. People should never bring a weapon to solve a dispute in this country. That's not who we are, and those people should be prosecuted and they should be arrested for sure, absolutely, unconditionally. But again, we have appropriatenesses for different agencies. They're trained to do for different things. They're trained to do different missions. You have to remember, who is the National Guard? The National Guard are people who work in other fields and they get deployed. They volunteer for the National Guard in moments of extreme senses of urgency in this country. They're not trained police forcing. And so we're really taking these men and women away from their full-time employment, away from their families to do something that they never signed up to do.
Right, and just sharing with our viewers, I was watching that last night. That was Mills Hayes in the middle of all the action. She had to wear a mask because there was, tear gas being deployed, and that was a story that we were continuing to follow very closely. I mean, look at what they're dealing with in Chicago. Again, 11 rioters arrested there. So hat tip to Mills. Speaking of the military, I got to get your take on this because Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is calling for an urgent meeting with top generals this week at a Marine Corps base in Virginia. The Washington Post is reporting that Trump will now be attending the meeting. So this is pretty rare. What do you make of all of it?
Well, it's highly unusual. And there's, we have ways to have secure communication with our top military leaders throughout the globe. And it's really it's fascinating that they're doing this because they're really leaving, command void around the globe and the different theater operations that we currently have military actions and presence in. When the leadership has been removed from those theaters, that's a real problem, especially in light of the fact that there are mechanisms in place for them to have these kind of secure communications. I think if this is some attempt to round up the leaders to change the structure of the military to get them to weaponize their forces against the American people, that's very concerning. If the intent is to get them to do loyalty oaths, which is the rumors I've heard for the president over the loyalty to the Constitution, that's very problematic. And so we're just going to have to wait and see what happens. But I'm very skeptical about it.
Wow, loyalty oaths. All right, well, we'll see what happens next, and we'll check back in with you, Democratic Congresswoman from Texas, Julie Johnson. Always great to have you on the program. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.